Zoo is situated at the north end of Labouchere Road in South Perth and is easily accessible from the Kwinana Freeway and Mill Point Road. It dates back to 1898, when a 41-acre site was developed and opened on October 17th. There were 53,000 visitors in the first 9 months, and today the zoo gets something like 750,000 people visiting every year. Unfortunately for the inmates, and by that I mean the animals, our collective attitude for a long time was that they were something to be stared at and something for us to be amused by. There was little attention to animal comfort and living conditions for most of the following 100 years after the zoo first opened. The examples of cages and enclosures in these historic photographs are almost horrific by today's standards. But that was what the animals had to endure for a very long time. Some of the cages, especially for the bears and elephants, were still in use when I was a child. Back when the zoo started, the main purpose was for the entertainment of people. A large portion of the zoo was taken up by sports areas and animal exhibits with something of a secondary feature. In fact, in 1909, the zoo played host to the Australasian Tennis Open. Things gradually changed and the animals became the central focus, but their comfort still did not figure highly in the scheme of things until the 1990s, when much more natural enclosures began to replace concrete cages with bars. During that time, the zoo underwent a large-scale makeover, with gardens becoming more and more lush and the enclosures the animals lived in becoming much more natural looking. There was still a large focus on allowing people to view the animals rather than giving animals the sense of privacy that they need. This led to instances like this, where animals became disturbed by people viewing them. The tiger viewing window today is not the open clear glass it once was, as a direct result of this. The Perth Zoo is a very popular day out, both for locals and tourists, but it is starting to look a little old and tired in some places. There is some redevelopment and construction going on, but this not only reduces the number of exhibits in the zoo, but tends to look less than attractive. It's unavoidable, of course, if the facilities are to be upgraded. When we visited, some exhibits were closed for refurbishment, and a number of enclosures had no animals present, so the overall impression really wasn't as good as it could have been. Some exhibits seem to be underpopulated, with lonely, sad-looking animals. So from what we saw on our recent visit, there is certainly room for improvement. In one piece of good news, the 2 elephants at the zoo are to be sent to the Monarto Safari Park in South Australia, where they'll be much more free to roam around. Perth Zoo has decided to no longer house elephants, and we certainly agree with this decision. Large animals need very large areas in order to have happier lives. The elephants leave Perth in mid-2025. The zoo participates in breeding programs for endangered species, and we think that is possibly the best reason for zoos to continue to exist. They become arcs around the world for the preservation of endangered animals, and in some instances are able to help repopulate areas that have lost their native animals. While the zoo certainly does provide entertainment value for its visitors, the focus today is more on the welfare of animals and the work on conservation, and that, we think, is a very good change. Operating costs of something like $30 million a year, and generally small surpluses backed up by government funding, doesn't seem to leave a lot of wiggle room when it comes to acquiring new animals or upgrading facilities. So it would be really nice to see the state government come to the party and dump in a few $1 million to get the zoo really back into shape. The zoo is one of the state's premier tourist attractions, and it's a perennial attraction for the locals, so this investment would certainly be worthwhile. Hopefully it won't be another 5 years before we visit again, and when we do, it would be nice to see some real improvement happening.